Hello, and welcome to Fort 1E, the podcast. It's about... What's it about? What's the... Greg, do you know what the podcast is about?
It's about life and the fortitude required to survive such an existence that we live. And we can talk about other existences which maybe are more difficult and maybe sustain more fortitude than we are currently experiencing. You know, maybe some less people who are just experiencing, who need no fortitude to continue to exist. And that too is a topic of conversation. I don't see there being a topic of conversation that is off limits in the fort.
I like that. That makes me feel comfortable. I can safely talk about all of my personal shortcomings and more. We could spend more time talking about yours, obviously, but that's something that we can talk about here. That's good. Speaking of your personal shortcomings, how are you doing today, Greg?
Feeling pretty good. I had coffee just now.
Coffee's good, man.
Pretty necessary.
That's a cross-cultural phenomenon. And some places do it completely differently, right?
Yeah. I do it my own way, as we all do.
And what's your own way, Greg?
I need to make more coffee. Because there's not enough coffee.
Just to make more coffee? Okay, well, that's a good strategy.
Well,
I meant more
I don't know. How do I'm using like organic soy milk or some shit. And coconut cane sugar or coconut something sugar.
Sugar from coconuts. I mean, that sounds like it's probably healthy.
Almond milk creamer. So
creamer?
Yeah. And I just mix it all together.
Yeah. That sounds very good. I don't put any sugar in mine, but I put coconut oil sometimes.
I did notice that. My brother does that too, but honestly, I noticed that there's a disparity in phase, and I don't know if I want coconut oil on my lips, I could just, put it on my lips after I rub it in my hair or something.
Yeah, let's all think about that for a bit. And yeah, it's not because I want anything on my lips. I do think that the coconut oil is good in coffee. I do know what you're talking about, though. It floats on top. It gets like stuck at the top.
That is insoluble. That is how I determine that I don't want to. I'd rather have things that are more soluble. But of course, nut milks aren't that as soluble as cow milk. So yeah, I have to play with the balance to get the equilibrium constant.
The ratio to be good. Yeah. It's but so consistency wise and insoluble wise, Turkish coffee is like full of the grounds, which are also not dissolving or anything, That's just solids that sit at the bottom. That's very different from what we do, and I presume what you do as well. I do make coffee with grounds in it, but not on purpose. And it looks like Greg is relocating his computer. Now we're underneath. Oh, are we in the kitchen?
Yeah, sorry. I need to make more coffee.
No, go for it.
I'm putting you on top of my dehydrator, where I am dehydrating bean sprouts.
Cool. Those are good on salad.
They're good on everything, and they're gonna be like crunchy. Like I want them to be like super crunchy. If you imagine, like bean sprouts are pretty freaking crunchy. If you took like the water out of them, they'd be like really, really crunchy. So
you figured it out. Use a dehydrator. Get crunchy beans.
Secret of the universe. And if I want to make freeze-dried stuff, I just dry it and then freeze it. But freezing it and then drying it, I don't know if that would work. Clearly joking.
Yeah, I don't know what else you would use a dehydrator for anyway, so I'm a little mystified.
I usually add this stuff to, like, I have pods, but I have...
Wait, what is that stuff?
It's instant espresso.
Okay.
So I make a pod, you know, using the regular method in my Keurig, and then afterwards I add instant coffee for my second cup, add instant espresso, and then pass through the coffee pod again to get the remaining caffeine so I don't waste it.
I see.
Yeah.
That's admirable.
Caffeine is so valuable.
It is.
All of Western society is moving caffeine.
And it's a drug, you know.
Have you looked at the news today at all?
No, I have not. Is there something I should know about?
I don't know. It's actually the continuing issue. It's just like pretty troubling.
You mean the illness ravaging the lands?
Well, that is very troubling, but nothing new on that front. But it's kind of the police brutality. The police brutality is kind of the worst case scenario that could have come from it. In terms of dividing people in the country. With the police brutality incident.
No, I didn't hear about anything with the police. As far as I was aware, they were up to their usual exclusively good behavior and completely being nice to everyone.
No way, man.
No? 5 men shot in Dorchester? Well, that sounds like England. Is that really America?
George Floyd.
George Floyd. That also sounds British.
It does. It sounds like George Harrison or like yeah.
No, it's
Floyd,
Boston.
like,
damn.
Well, Minneapolis. But anyway, this man was arrested, and promptly the officers stepped on his throat for minutes and killed him. It was a clear violation.
Jesus.
Like, how did it happen? It's 2020. It's still happening, and I don't know. It needs to be addressed. Like, everyone's got to come to terms with it.
Part of it has got to be feeling like one is able to get away with it. I feel. And that's tricky because to some extent you do need your police to operate on a different, like, legal plane than citizens for them to do their job. But there's still supposed to be accountability. And when all of these really, really egregious mistakes are being made over and over again, one of the implications to me is that there's not a failure of accountability, and whoever is responsible isn't being punished, basically. I think that's one of the repeated complaints about other police brutality instances is that the officers they just walked away scot-free. They didn't lose their job. They didn't go to jail themselves. And like I said before, I understand why you can't necessarily be sending a police officer to jail for being violent in his job, because he's, protecting people from potentially violent people. So you need a slightly different system, but it seems like the system is letting this just keep happening, right? I'm not going crazy here. Oh wait, Greg, I can't hear you. It looks like you're talking, but I do not hear you. It might be me. No, I think my volume's up. And it's not Not Zoom. Oh wait, I heard something.
40
Oh,
volt, 48
there
volt.
we go. Now I hear you.
You hear me now?
Yes,
It's so stupid. I have to press the 48 volts button.
I
Or
have
just
that on
leave.
my thingy too. I don't know why it's there, but I have it on. I don't know what it does.
If you turned it off, you wouldn't be able to hear it. I wouldn't be able to hear you.
Well, I'm not gonna do that.
Genius. Anyway, I was saying something important. It seemed like.
Yeah.
And what were you saying? Because I
I was talking about an accountability issue with respect to police and all of these instances of violence perpetrated by police officers implies to me that we need to do something with police officers. It doesn't mean fire a bunch of people necessarily, but something.
I don't really know what could be done, because if by now there isn't a thought in every police officer's mind, white or black, that human life needs to be preserved at all costs, barring the safety of oneself. I mean, come on. Like the issue here is that they acted. There's video, or yeah, there's definitely video that showed that he had intention to kill that man. I mean, at what point, if someone is in the act of murdering another person, sure, I think that, you know, brutal lethal force can be used, you know, ethically, or but even then, you know, shooting to stop the act is different than shooting to kill the individual. And this wasn't even a shooting. This is a fucking foot. Sorry, I didn't mean to curse. I don't even know if we're allowed to curse. Probably. This is a fucking boot. A fucking boot on a fucking throat.
A fucking boot.
In 2020, a man wearing a badge and boots stepped on an innocent. I don't know how innocent. I'm not a detective. That's not my job. I can't determine the innocence or guiltitude of this person, but
Guiltitude.
I know that. Why? I mourn for this man. We have to.
Yeah, individual and family alike, but indicating that it really sucks is important. I do think that regardless, something should be done, though. And we need to recognize, I think, there's limitations on what can be done, partly because the people in charge don't want to be punished, right? Like, if we were going to try and hold, let's say we tried to have not the guy that did that crime, the footsteppy crime, but like people that said that like were his boss and let him continue working for the years leading up to this, and maybe someone who said, "Oh, this is a stand-up guy; he can be a police officer now." Like if there's like a test where your morals are tested by an examiner, and they give this person a pass, and then later they get their foot through someone's neck and kill them. Maybe that examiner should be talked to or something like that. I don't know, but it seems like there's a problem if this keeps happening, but how are we going to get the people in charge? They don't want to be punished. We might need to sort of find like a middle ground of so the officer took a life unfairly. I think it would be ridiculous and also wrong to try and get the officer's life to make it even or anything like that. What do you think about the officer going to jail for killing the guy?
Well, first off, there's got to be investigation into this man. There has to be, you know, any sort of malicious intent exposed. You know, this man might be, you know, this man seems like a criminal.
Wait, where is this again?
Minneapolis.
Okay, and yeah, because you made an interesting reply. I was talking about, like, I leapt ahead, and maybe I shouldn't have. I was kind of assuming there's going to be an investigation and things like that, but maybe because it was a quote unquote accident on the job and not an actual murder, quote unquote.
There's video. There's a video. There needs to be like a trial, an investigation, a trial, and then.
But there may not be, is what you're saying?
No, there's got to be. There has to be. How could there not be? In this time in humanity's history, like what? I'm just still shocked. This could even happen.
Yeah, but
of course it will always happen.
That I don't think is necessarily true. Regardless, I do think this guy should be the thing is, I don't know how much other police brutality situations were investigated, but it may just be treated differently. Maybe I should just Google is police brutality investigated or something like that.
I feel like they do go to trial.
So
or something, because certain officers have been acquitted of charges. Victim's family presses charges.
Okay, but
there should be an organization that investigates or something. I don't know. Maybe. Well, I'm just thinking out loud. People, who knows? But this incident can't go unnoticed. You can't do nothing. And then in response, they're doing protests. I'm still getting used to talking to the microphone. They're doing protests, and someone was shot during the protest. It's the same thing. That happened with Eric Gardner.
Yeah.
It cascades.
The
violence just creates more violence.
There were protesters protesting what?
Protesting that the act trying to bring international attention to it.
Oh, to what happened. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like in an ideal world, this police officer goes to trial and is legally people determine his guilt.
Apprehended or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not only apprehended. I mean, ideally, you never need to apprehend a police officer because he's like you have his phone number and stuff like that, and he works for the government. So, determine his guilt with a jury or whatever the normal procedure would be for a citizen, and give a punishment. Would that? And then in this case, since we know that he did it and that it wasn't like a whoopsie doodle, oopsie, I tripped and fell and killed him by accident, whether or not you can argue that he meant to just restrain the person and accidentally kill them, that's still very different, in my opinion, from completely intent. Accidentally. I'm just
demonstrated by the video.
I am imagining that if there is a trial or some kind of case, the officer and anyone defending him would argue that it was not intentional. And to some extent, that isn't something you can just know for sure. It's not like the temperature of water where you can just measure it with a thermometer. But I personally think that since it's not just a complete actual accident, there should be some amount of accountability and punishment. So I guess the fear would either be that there is no trial and he's not held accountable at all, or there is a trial and he's completely acquitted, despite the fact that we have the video of him doing it.
Why does there need to be an outrage for him to be tried? There's not necessarily an answer to that question. There's no stopping if the video came out, they immediately said the officer in the video is in custody. Would that have stopped the riot?
I have no idea.
Maybe.
Wait, what?
Someone sees the video, makes a judgment call. Someone sees the video, makes a judgment call. his supervisor sees the video. He's like, "Oh shit, get in here, give me your badge. We gotta make a press release to stop people from killing one another on the aftermath of this heinous act." That is
Yeah.
protecting the public more so than arresting someone ever could be, maybe. That's just like an active shooter. Yeah.
It does seem like at the very least they should have a plan for the kickback, since, like you said, that's something we already know happens all the time. We can cite other cases. And yeah, it's kind of weird, like, if this officer killed this man with his foot, like, what were his next 24 hours like? Like, and these are things I don't know, but, like, was his partner like, hey, you shouldn't have done that, and then he was like, yeah, I guess not. Oh, well, like, is that, like, was it just like, and then otherwise he was working, or did he need to sit, like, did multiple different people from different levels of the police department come in and talk to him and be like, hey, this terrible thing happened, and maybe they're like, I'm sorry it happened on your watch. Like, maybe they're like saying, I'm sorry that you were involved in this guy becoming dead, you poor police officer. I don't really know what the attitude is. But.
When information spreads this quickly, you have to take responsibility for the act as soon as possible.
Yeah.
As a police department.
It sounds like what you said, if we knew that he was being held and was going to be held accountable, people wouldn't have had something to fight about. People may still have brought attention to it, to have the internet be aware of this for social reasons, but there shouldn't have been, like you said, the outrage could have maybe been reduced if they were more organized about it.
Yep.
And I mean, that seems like it should be obvious anyway, that this guy should immediately, in some way, not be allowed to just go home and play PlayStation, Like, once again, I prefaced all this by acknowledging it's different for a police officer than a civilian, and police officers are amazing for putting their lives on the line and things like that. But at the same time, it seems like in this case, this person should have their freedoms limited, at least until we figure out how guilty they are, like with most people.
I mean, it's not like a penalty box in hockey. It's not like you shoved someone too hard because they pissed you off, and it's a physical sport where we're exerting physical force on another person is, commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
You get, if you go too far, you get 5 minutes, or something in a penalty box until like you go back in the game, or if it's really bad offense, you get kicked out of the game. Like, society, you can kill someone, and then what happens next is a question. Yeah, I don't know.
The penalty box is often the answer to that question. Theoretically, police officers are part of their job is finding people, and then if those people need to be restrained and brought to the penalty box known as prison, they do that. Then
maybe if someone's accused of a crime or something, because news spreads so quickly, they need to be protected or put in a place where they're maybe in the public eye on watch, and maybe not necessarily like streaming them, but where the public knows where they are or something. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well,
like a limbo,
I agree with that.
Like a limbo. Like you fuck up, you go to limbo, and then what happens is determined by people. I don't know.
I know, but that sounds good, and I think that most police departments have a few jail cells in them that, if people bring you food and water and leave you alone when you need to use the toilet, it's not nearly as bad as being in actual prison, but you're also not going anywhere, and you're not being treated like someone who didn't kill somebody. You're being treated like someone who killed somebody. You're being put in a cage. It kind of sucks, but you should be anyone who, whether or not it was a complete accident that had no, your foot was not involved, you accidentally kill someone, you should probably be put in timeout. Think about what you did, and then it seems like there's this added bonus of, if the public know that, if the people of the public are aware of that, they will feel better to some extent, because it's more likely this person will be held accountable. And then as a result, there will be less outrage. But yeah, sending, like, if a police officer, I would say that, it would also be ridiculous to immediately send this police officer to Rikers or something like that, where all the prisoners are like, oh, here's a police officer, let's beat the shit out of him. Like, that's obviously a terrible idea too, But I don't think that this limbo idea is completely unrealistic. I do think that as long as it's, I guess it's just like regular prison. As long as you're not putting too many people in there, it works.
If someone's accused of crime, just fucking put him in limbo. But then for his own safety, maybe, it's going to get like that. I think a high-profile crime. Well, this is another type of crime. This is its own category of crime. Can't remain untalked about.
It's part of what appears to be a repeating shitty thing that happens. But I don't think it's unsolvable.
I mean, is this connected to the quarantine state? Is the reaction, maybe the magnitude of the reaction to this, act or news getting out? Maybe people are like repressed. They're, being locked in their houses. People are very unhappy with the state of the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
It seems like it's not going to get less intense, this protesting, once people are allowed out. But who knows?
Yeah, there's easily
we could fear our freedoms being limited at this point, I think.
Mm-hmm. I don't see that much has been limited yet. Assuming things continue to get better, don't think we have too much to worry about. But it also depends on your job. Like you said, if you work in a restaurant, it'll change a lot more. And then also concerts and sporting events, the rate at which all that gets going again is very hazy. And some places want to start before others, but that could fuck it up for everyone.
Basically, there are two trains of thought that are prevalent and will be prevalent going forward for an undetermined amount of time that really no one thought about 6 months ago, which is the get things back going regular how they were force of train of thought, and then the let's be safe, let's not quest too forward train of thought, and like that push and pull. That's like the only important thing right now, besides this asshole who killed someone in cold blood. Like these are things that are going to be the main issues going forward,
guiding a lot of people's decisions and society's behaviors.
And how it's going to be expressed, who knows? The protests are the first symptom.
Yeah. The problem I have with, I don't think your analogy is wrong. It's just, it's tragic because the fastest way to get everything back to normal is to be really safe. And you kind of need if you want it, and this is, I mean, this is like a classic thing that Americans, I think, fail at. If you do more earlier on, and by Americans, I just mean me, if you do more earlier on, then later is easier. And if we had hunkered down and locked ourselves up and worked on cures and tests and masks a month or two before we did, then we would have been having a normal summer, potentially. And by slowly getting started, we have made it take longer to get back to normal. So it as much as the people will speak about them like they're contradictory and like they oppose each other, but they really are part of the same solution. And the only way we're going to get, everybody wants everything to be back to normal. Maybe
there's no normal anymore. That's the problem. There's the forces that exist. It's not in actuality what's happening. The forces will produce other consequences that are, unexpected.
That's always true, though. When I say normal, I mean no more masks. You don't think that's possible?
I don't think I don't wear a mask or a bandana, but who knows when they're gonna not require people to wear masks in stores.
But
I mean, do you have a projection? Do you have a guess? 6 months, a year, a week? Like a week? What? Like who knows?
Yeah, part of it. Is this illness a sign of something that's going to start happening more often? Like, is there going to be a COVID-20 and a COVID-21? Because then you're right. There's no predicting when the masks come off, and you're right. There may never be what I was calling normal. There may never be a no mask time again in that scenario. I really am hoping that's not the case. But I don't know. I'm not a biologist or epidemiologist or anything like that. But if we assume that COVID-19 isn't going to immediately be followed up, I would imagine being in stores without masks in 6 months. I think that's a pretty generous guess.
But would assuming that make us more vulnerable to... Of course it would. To repeat.
Wait, what?
I'm saying that it would leave us more vulnerable to repeating the not being prepared blunder folly that we were just talking about.
I don't think so. I think we can have infrastructure and strategies and science for finding cures and doing testing and delivering food to people and making masks and helping people work from home. All the things that would have allowed us to get back to normal faster, we can have ready. I talked about, I think on the first episode, how we should have been ready this time also. But I think that we can still go to the beach and swim in pools with each other and go in mosh pits with each other.
Of course.
Once COVID-19 is no longer a problem, and we should be more prepared in the future also. I think we can have our cake and eat it too, assuming COVID-19 goes away. But you pointed out maybe it won't, or maybe there'll just be another one that follows it up immediately.
Yeah. But we determine whether or not that happens by how we treat, going back to lax, like there's no normal. It's either like high alert PPE, low alert PPE.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when is it going to go back down? And we'll putting it back down, make it go back up again, probably.
I mean, I think so. It's messy. History can be useful in that similar things have happened, and we can look at those things. So every time there was some kind of terrible pandemic or illness that spread around the world or spread across an area and ravaged it, for the most part, it either completely went away or became something that was manageable. Like a smallpox vaccine, like at first that wasn't manageable, but eventually we figured it out. Or the Black Death, the Black Plague isn't something we worry about anymore. It was definitely something to worry about at one point, but that time ended, So if we look at history, we can see a series of pandemics that ended. However, the problem is that the present is completely different from any past time in so many different ways. And one of those ways is how much we've destroyed the environment and how much we've interacted with livestock and other organisms in the environment, and eating bats, or being in very close proximity to animals that eat bats, whatever it is that
it's so pervasive all the way. Yeah, it's so pervasive.
And right, so if we look at history, we can conclude that there's a chance COVID-19 will end and we will not need to wear masks anymore. But we need to recognize that that's not necessarily the case. But I think there's plenty of reason for optimism. But we need to, I think the more careful we are now, the sooner we can take our masks off at the end of the day.
I think masks are now the standard going forward. Maybe they'll become less popular.
For how long?
I'm not Nostradamus. I have no idea.
You don't have a guess? I mean, so you're saying longer than 6 months? Because I was saying 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like people are gonna have tan lines on their face.
That'll be interesting. I mean, in China, they do always wear them, but they somehow destroyed their air even faster than we did. Like in Chinese cities, even before COVID, they were wearing masks.
I mean, in Los Angeles, the fog is noticeably thick. Like, we're visibly, you're like, what am I actually breathing in?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe less noticeable in New York, but that it too in New York.
Do
you wear a mask?
It kind of makes sense to wear a mask in Manhattan all the time.
Yeah.
It kind of is a mountain of garbage with combustion happening on it constantly.
And millions of people with Face ID.
Yeah.
How much wasted productivity? Taking for granted what we just got. Apple did not see not see masks coming when they created Face ID.
Is that true?
Yeah, it doesn't fucking work if you're wearing a mask.
Well, they should figure it out.
I know, it's the biggest problem in society besides like people dying.
This is right after that, though.
We're calling on you, Apple. Fix this.
Second. Yeah, it doesn't sound impossible to just use the eyes and the nose and stuff to do that. I'm sure they'll figure it out. I'm looking at the daily cases for the U.S., and we're doing pretty damn good.
So less than yesterday?
Yeah, the past week has exclusively descended. Granted, that usually happens. The Fridays are the biggest, so but it held true every day since Friday the 21st, or Friday the 22nd rather. It's gone down. The number of cases per day in the U.S. And actually, the number of people that are confirmed sick, it kind of looks like the derivative, the second derivative, is negative.
That's a positive inflection point.
That's amazing. That's what we've been waiting for. But it's
Awesome.
very gentle. It's not, I think it's obvious that we still have a ways to go.
Yeah, I don't really know what's going to happen. But, there's no reason not to think that it's going to be better than it is now.
And also good to be aware that certain things may not ever go back to the way they were. It's a good point. It's like a difficult thing to accept, but and even if it is true, it's still worth bringing what we can back to the way it was, assuming we want it that way, But I think restaurants, for the most part, but this is kind of an opportunity. Check this out, Greg. Key West is where my parents live. Tiny island. There's Florida. So here's the U.S. for our viewers that are watching. And then in the southeast, Florida sticks off, and then off the tip of Florida is a chain of tiny islands. It's kind of hard to see it on a map unless you zoom in there, but there's these little islands called the Keys. At the very end is Key West. And it's not because it's the westmost island. It's because its original name was like Koiwost or something like that, which means Bone Island, believe it or not. So my elderly parents live on Bone Island. But anyway, Key West, great, beautiful beautiful. It does sound like a nice place to retire. Beautiful, beautiful place, clear water, fantastic weather. It's a paradise. But people in the past few years have been having the cruise ships that they're on dock at the island. So, like, the cruise ships are comparable size to the island. Like, the ships are enormous, and they make an enormous amount of noise. They bring an enormous amount of tourists to the island, and they also take up an enormous amount of space. Since coronavirus started, the docking of cruise ships was banned, and the cruise ships are not allowed to dock there anymore. And now that some places like Florida, of course, are trying to get back, quote unquote, get back to normal sooner, i.e. change the rules back to the way they were faster, they're going to have a vote on whether or not the cruise ships can come in again. But you can also sign and say, I don't want them to ever come back again. And that the change that we implemented from coronavirus, such that the cruise ships no longer dock here, is better. And now that I've tried that, I like that, and I want to keep that. I don't want it to go back to the way it was before. That was worse than this. So in that sense, it's an opportunity to change certain things that would otherwise have been really tough to sort of change in the first place. But after you change it, you can see what the benefits are. And this is one of those cases. The water in the bay where the boats dock had become this blackish, murky color. And now when my parents go there months later, it's beautiful and clear and blue, just like the rest of the ocean. The environment's important. The ecosystem's important. The biology is important. If you're running this gigantic ship, which there's got to be stuff oozing out of it, oil, poop, God knows what chemicals, and is churning up the whole ocean floor and moving this massive amount of water, like, you're clearly impacting your environment. It's the only like barrier reef system in the United States, and they're driving these giant boats through it. And even if you don't care about fish and you don't care about the environment, one of the reasons people come to be tourists and spend money and buy drinks in Key West is because it's beautiful and because of the flora and the fauna. Mm-hmm. So if you run over all of it and poison all of it, you actually can't sell your drinks anymore. So even if you're purely economically motivated, you should be recognizing the economic value in not destroying your island. So this is maybe a silver lining of the COVID thing, and I hope they do ban the boats from docking. And apparently this is what one thing I said, couldn't they send a little boat with people on it from the cruise ship? You know, like a satellite ship. I was talking to my parents about this, and they're like, that's what they used to do. And so at some point, the cruise ship people just got so much power and influence that they were able to slide in there, but this might be in the chance to get them the fuck out.
Fascinating. I mean, I know that there are people who are stuck on cruise ships.
That sounds sounds a little terrible.
I don't know. It sounds like so interesting. I can't wait till I make a movie about it.
That would be fun.
Real events. It wouldn't be good unless it were based on real.
That has got to be a source of a lot of interesting stories. But everybody's got to be getting sick.
Everyone's getting sick. Everyone's like fucking like they're like, we're gonna die. Like, oh, wow.
Yeah, it sounds like good movie material.
Amazing stuff. Horrible circumstance, but we are human. We humans, you know, art is a way for us to, you know, be a little sadistic without it being harmful to society.
Is it?
We could take any of this out. We could take any of this out of the podcast.
Yeah, but then we'd need to figure out how to like edit audio and shit like that. Sounds so hard to do. So much easier to just keep going.
Yes. Okay.
One thing I have written down to talk about is abortion. You want to talk about abortion? So let's talk about a lighter subject instead of police brutality and the pandemic, and instead talk about, you know, just an innocent surgical operation.
I've never been a part of the decision of an abortion. Like, I bought Plan B once.
Mm-hmm.
I used to count birth control, but I've thought about it. What would happen if this person got pregnant? With some girls, I'd want to keep it. With some girls, it wasn't. It just is what it is. Mm-hmm. But what the guy wants doesn't really matter, from what I understand. Unless the woman wants it to matter.
It should. I mean, it seems like a man's input is capped at 50%. Just
that's way too much.
Right, but like, well, and I would agree with that too. It's just I think you need to look at that as the highest possible number.
Way too high.
But yeah, at the end of the day, the physical and emotional investment, or at least physical for sure, by default of a woman and the child is going to be greater. Gives her fair reason to have more say about it. It's interesting that you brought up Plan B. Is that so? Yeah, the question: is there a similarity or difference between Plan B and abortion? I mean, I'm sure some people would say yes, right?
Some people would say anything.
That's true. The issue that people, I think, are always going to get stuck on is whether or not it counts as a person. And I think we talked about that a bit, kind of, 2 episodes ago. I observed that we think of ourselves having an eternal essence, or maybe an essence that will last after we're gone, that has qualities about us. But having not lived, you don't really have qualities about you. Like you are a product of the things that you experience and the things you say and do. Like if someone would describe a person as like chatty or quiet or funny or serious, you know, and that's part of what makes that person, that's cool. But someone who's never lived has none of those. If so, like, personality seems like it's in some way correlated to personhood. And if you aren't born yet, you don't have a personality. So maybe that means you aren't a person yet.
Maybe.
But maybe not.
But the idea of a person exists before a person exists. It's like, there's like this French movie. Sorry, excuse me. There's this French movie directed by Goddard, and like there's this French guy and this French girl like fucking. But anyway, it's actually really interesting. She's robbing a bank and he's a bank security guard, and they're about to kill each other. And instead of killing each other, they just like fuck right in the spot. It's a really interesting movie. But she's later on, she's like, "What comes before a name?" And he's like, "A first name." And she's like, "No, you idiot! Like that's not what I'm talking about at all." Like, I don't know, the idea of an addition of pressing the +1 button on life on lives like around you, and you're personally responsible for pressing that, you know, for increasing that number and being directly responsible. Just the idea might change a relationship. The idea of a child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like a child could kill itself before it's even born.
Well, that depends on the prior question, because kill isn't something you would use. You wouldn't say like, I killed my pencil.
The idea of the child kills the child. It's like a classic Schrodinger's cat scenario.
Well, the cat should check out the fact that if you're going to use the word kill, it's already implying the answer to the question. Because you're, you know, like, if it's just like, if it's like picking, like, I don't talk about killing my fingernails when I use a nail clipper to remove them from my body.
True. I just, you know, languidly use that term. But
yeah, that I get what you're saying, but I do think that that's one of the reasons it's very easy to not make progress on this issue, is because everybody, myself included, will wind up using ideas and words that have specific meanings that are very significant, like the word kill versus the word deactivate. Because there's so many different ways of looking at it, and it's not something that you can measure like water. So, but it's worth noting when one uses a certain word. You know, why did I say that? Do I really think I'm killing something when someone's getting an abortion? I mean, I personally have never been aborted myself.
Successfully.
Yes, that's true. No one has successfully aborted me. But as far as whether or not it should be legal or illegal, Like, abortion should be illegal unless it's rape. What do you think of that take? That's it.
I mean, listen,
Oh wait, no.
If society were able to sustain life better, that's one thing. But we're doing a pretty shitty job at sustaining life as a society right now.
Yeah. Well, no, I actually got it mixed up. Abortion should be legal unless it's rape.
So if you got raped, it's illegal to get an abortion?
Exactly.
That seems a bit backwards.
It seems a bit like the perfect platform for my new position as a conservative politician. It's got a conservative's two favorite things: telling women what to do with their bodies and rape. It's the perfect confluence. Look at all the MAGA guys with that. No.
I can't believe that these people exist that we're satiring, I guess.
I'm hoping that my satire is not even of a real person. There's no one's like, yeah, if you're raped, you gotta raise that kid. Though there must have been like cultures like that, right? Probably in the Middle East.
Who knows? I think reading a story about about that would be very valuable for someone growing up in today's world, but I have not. So if you got a story like this, you better get it out there.
Yeah, I'll do that. We like to think we're really good at sexism here in the West, but they really mastered it in the Middle East. They don't even let them drive.
Well, they don't let me drive.
Well, that makes sense.
It's a burden.
There's legitimate reasons why you shouldn't be allowed to drive.
Probably.
Like you were talking about helping the people of society like live or something like that.
I've never been responsible for a death.
That I know after having tossed a burning pizza box out the window.
I'm pretty sure it vaporized before it hit the ground.
It would have been funny if it like just someone like it sort of swooshed down and started to drop really fast, and someone like was walking and you're like, look out, and they looked up and it just decapitated them.
It's like, oh my god!
And their heads on the ground. Their heads just on the ground, like, holy shit! What was that? Like, ooh, pizza!
I'm like, oh damn, my pizza! They got my pizza. The head just like rolls right next to the pizza. And he's like,
my phone's not even charged. Shit. I think that's what I would do if I was decapitated.
Curse yourself for not charging your phone more?
No, eat pizza.
I mean, sure. I'll order pizza right now.
Thanks, dude.
No, I'm going to order Indian food.
I'll cut my head off right now.
Okay, I'm watching.
I can't do it while you're looking.
Okay.
You have to look away.
Okay, that's easy.
Okay, I did it. We got there.
Whoa, dead man talking. What the hell's going on?
Well, I'm glad we figured out abortion.
Yeah.
Well,
ethically.
Completely. No, we just figured it out
We figured
entirely.
out the ethical implications of any sort of scenario involving abortion.
Yeah, I guess the main takeaway is try not to get aborted.
Yeah. So, and really, we're not talking to people, but the idea of people.
Yeah, that's true. I'm speaking. I'm speaking to the fetuses right now. If you can, try to dodge the bort stick. But you know, if you can't, that that's life. I mean, it's not, but
Can I say this? I don't know. I feel like if you survived an abortion, it would be all more awesome. Coming into the world.
that's true. Yeah, I was saying if you didn't survive it.
You're like, we cannot kill it. It is indestructible.
I think we tried. We've tried everything, and it just cuts to a surgeon with a handgun just shoved in this woman's pussy. Just looking away, like a finger in his ear, like, all right, here we go. And he pulls the trigger, and the bullet just ricochets out, goes through his neck, and he drops to the ground.
He like presses the nurse call button.
Bring me pizza.
Like, I'm about to be decapitated. Bring me pizza.
Damn, that's a sick movie right there. The abortion that goes horribly wrong.
Unabortable fetus.
Or it's almost like a reverse abortion.
Where the fetus kills everyone that tries to kill it.
Yeah, it's like the contrapositive, actually.
That's a reference to our Memorial Day conversation.
Yes. Like we could have all the bits where it's a fetus. I almost said baby, where it's a fetus, and they're like trying to abort it, and they can't do it, and the scene with the handgun and all that good stuff. They could try a few other things. They have her like they go to a fair, and they the tall things, the bell at the top, we use a sledgehammer. Something with that.
The gravitron.
Yeah, the gravitron, exactly. And they're like, what are we gonna do special this? Like, no, just the gravitron, that gives you an abortion. Everybody knows that.
That is fully equipped.
This is just an abortion machine. And then eventually, and all the doctors keep dying while they're trying to do this, and eventually, like the last one he's trying, he's like, I'm gonna get killed. I give up. Sorry, honey.
I'm the last doctor. There's like a doctor that says no more doctors after me should try this. It's reached the point of diminishing return. It's not worth it.
Right.
Let the baby live.
Well,
after I try this, and it's like something really creative.
And it doesn't work.
No, yeah, of course not.
And then he's like, well, fine, honey, you're going to need to raise your child. I'm sorry, oops. And then like years later, that doctor's like having coffee, and he's like old and retired. And this younger man just walks into the coffee shop and stares him down.
Kicks him in the balls or something.
It holds him up by his ankles and spanks him. Oh, you know what? It might be good to just end the movie.
Yeah, that's all right. We got to just make the new Twilight Zone. That's what happened.
When the guy comes in, the younger man comes into the coffee shop and looks at the old doctor, and the doctor looks up, and there's that moment of recognition. Then black. To be continued? Question mark.
I mean, we should continue it. I mean, the baby who cannot be killed has a pretty special fate.
Yeah, I mean, bullets reflect off of him as a fetus.
Does he retain his immortality throughout life, or not? That he'll never really know. But maybe he's just really close to death all the time. He's just perpetually having near-death experiences, but never actually dying.
That's how his life began.
Yep.
Sort
and that's how his entire life will go.
Damn.
That's a Twilight Zone episode. Well, whatever. We got to think of a different Fort Winnie episode. There we go.
Yeah.
you can call both things Fort Winnie. Who cares? No one else called anything Fort Winnie before us. So we've got it.
We've got all the copyrights. Yeah, that I would imagine. I mean, humans normally become more resilient from aging for a while, at least. He might become more superhuman as he ages.
Yeah. But
it does sound kind of like Superman.
It does. That's why I think adding the near-death experience part, maybe not like by supervillains, because obviously Superman dealt with that. That was his near-death constant force, but of like coincidental occurrences, like cars stopping inches before hitting him.
Well, I mean, if it depends how hard we want to lead into the scene where the bullet is being reflected out of his mother's vagina. Because if he can reflect bullets as a fetus, surely he could take a car as an adult.
Right. If we went to Superman route. Anyway, yeah. There's so much like plethora of information that we've absorbed out of the years that creating imaginary scenarios out of nothing seems like fun and fruitful endeavor that I think we will continue to do during Fort Winnie.
Yeah, dude.
It's been over an hour.
It's probably been at least 10 minutes.
Past.
No, I don't know how long it's been. I just know it's been more than 10 minutes. One of the things I have written down to do every time is
set a timer last time.
Set a timer, and I did not do that this time. It's all right. I think that we've got enough stuff. Unless you have any closing statements, Gregory.
Glad we did this. I mean, coffee gave me I'd like to thank coffee for the strength to get through this podcast.
Shout out to coffee.
It's going to get easier as we go along, as society becomes more aware of the perils of closed-mindedness. Maybe coffee will get better.
Coffee getting better, that's interesting. But yeah, no guarantees about the podcast getting better. Don't hold your breath, folks.
That's the best advice we've given all podcasts.
I'd like to say this was the worst episode, which would be great if every episode we do is an improvement. But I can't guarantee that. we may go lower. Yes, we could probably try and find out how maximally bad we can make it. We'll get back to you on that. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. It's been a blast. If you have any topic ideas or comments or questions about any of the topics we discussed this time, do you think someone who has been raped should not be allowed to get an abortion? Makes sense to me, but everybody's got their own opinions. And yeah, take it easy. Thanks for joining us in Fort 1E.